district before it can move forward to a vote of the people and be authorized.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We have the prime sponsor, Representative Nance, here, if you'd like to present your bill.
Yes. Thank you, Chair Leas, Ranking Member King, members of the committee. Great to be with you all here today. My name, for the record, is Craig Nance, and I proudly represent Kitsap in the House of Representatives. And it's great to see friends, old and new, up here. House Bill 1923 is all about putting boats on the water as quickly and as cheaply as possible. I bring this bill forward as a lifelong ferry rider. Some of my earliest memories are riding the boat to go watch Mariner games. My favorite player, King Griffey Jr. And for 32 years, my dad was a daily commuter into downtown Seattle to help put bread on the table and put 3 kids through college. And my family story is not unique. Hundreds of thousands of families across Washington count on our ferries for their economic lifeline. They count on it for their education, and they count on it for healthcare access. As we know, it's been a challenging few years. We're entering year 6 of diminished service from Washington State ferries. And that has posed really large challenges for many folks across our region. Being from Kitsap, we've had a front row seat to the power of passenger-only ferries. Thanks to our fast ferry service, our neighbors in Kingston and in Bremerton still had reliable connectivity to the city and to the opportunities I mentioned, to the educational and to the healthcare lifelines that we count on. And so we've had a front row seat there. And as I've learned connecting with other electeds and civic leaders across the Sound, that's not the story in the North Sound. That's not the story in the South Sound, where we haven't had passenger-only ferry access because of statutory limitations. And that's what House Bill 1923 is all about. We believe that every community across Puget Sound deserves reliable ferry access, and this legislation can help us take that step even faster. Now, I also want to be clear. We are in the midst of an incredible comeback story authored by the 2,100 hardworking folks that make Washington State Ferries the global institution that it is. And we got to hear a little bit of that earlier this afternoon. That is remarkable. And I commend the 2,100 hardworking folks. We'll actually get to hear from a few more of them here in a moment about their workforce needs. That is a big deal. I'm very heartened to see Governor Ferguson and the bold leadership it's going to take to get ferries fully back on track with the resumption of domestic service this summer. That is a big deal for our communities. And I want to give a hat tip to this legislature and this committee in particular. Years and years of investments are required to get us to this stage. And that is a big deal. We've also got to move faster, because even under the best case of our current plan, our new boats aren't going to arrive until 2028 and 2029 and 2030 and beyond. We need to move faster because a lot of communities are really hurting. And we're going to hear more of that in testimony about those needs and how we've got to be more responsive to those needs faster than current timelines enable. With that said, what is the Mosquito Fleet Act all about? It's about local empowerment. It's about enabling local communities to step up and provide local solutions to the challenges that we face. A couple years before the pandemic hit, we were very fortunate in Kitsap. A few of our civic leaders stepped up a passenger-only ferry service that was enabled us to meet our local needs. And I believe that across the Sound, we have needs of this kind that Washington State Ferries won't be able to fully meet. And that's okay. We can have a couple tiers of service, including our flagship WSF service with the large automobile ferries, and then a second passenger-only ferry service that's a little bit more nimble, a little bit more agile, and provides more connectivity. And to give you all a couple examples, which we'll hear more about in testimony, in the San Juans, connecting Orcas and Lopez and Friday Harbor with Bellingham, where a lot of folks get health care. In the Central Sound, folks in Whidbey and Hat Island and the Port of Everett connecting to meet workforce needs and healthcare needs in that region. And then in the South Sound, connecting Vashon and Des Moines, South Downtown, and even Point Ruston for more connectivity. So each of those are hard-pressed to be served by current ferry opportunities, but with passenger-only ferry, very nimbly, agilely, cheaply, and quickly can stand up service there. And so when we we look to our maritime history and maritime heritage, we can actually see a healthier, more connected, and more prosperous future. And that is what the Mosquito Fleet Act is all about, a local option that local taxpayers are putting in for to enable more connectivity to meet the needs of today and tomorrow. And with that, I would welcome your questions, and I thank you for your consideration.
Are there any questions for the prime sponsor? Senator Lovelett.
Thank you. I was approached by one of my local NGOs around making sure that the mosquito fleets are explicitly required to follow our safe whale watching guidelines. So anyway, I know you're aware of that, but just wanted to flag that for you as something that's a potential amendment.
Yes, and thank you, Senator Lovelett. I appreciate all your work, not only on ferries, but also to keep our orcas safe. And I will say, you look at the letters in front of House Bill, the engrossed substitute, a lot of that is around environmental protections. And to be crystal clear, we had great feedback from the Friends of the San Juans and from the Whale Trail. These are advocates that care deeply about our marine brethren and sisters, and as a result of that, we've amended the language in the intent section where absolutely the Mosquito Fleet Act will follow those provisions and with due course implement best practices around both the operations and then the actual technology for quieter hulls, quieter propellers, so that we're not getting over the 110 decibels, which then interferes with echolocation that orcas use to hunt.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Senator Jeff Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Forgive me for doing this, but how did you get to the name Mosquito Fleet versus Hummingbird or something else? Can you help me out with that?
Absolutely. So I grew up in a special place called Manzanita Bay. And when I was a little kid swimming around Manzanita Bay, I saw a Manzanita landing sign. And my dad got to give me a history lesson that back 100 plus years ago, we used to have far more connectivity on the Puget Sound thanks to these really small privately operated vessels, the Mosquito Fleet. Hundreds of these buzzing around Puget Sound. And it used to be a lot easier to go from Bainbridge Island to Bremerton and from all points across the Sound than it is today. So long before interstates or state routes, we had the Mosquito Fleet. And my belief is a return to that history and heritage helps us better connect for a healthier future.
Senator Shoemake.
Thank you, Representative. So my constituents love your bill. And I just have a question, though. I mean, we have these dreams. I think what they're dreaming of is we get in on Bellingham and we take a ride to the islands and I ride my bike all around Orcas Island and I come back home instead of having to drive all the way to visit Liz and back. Yeah. What are the costs of running these? Like, is this a reasonable thing that a community could do, or?
Yeah, so we're going to hear from a couple folks who actually operate these today on Puget Sound, which will give you lots of helpful data points. I will say at a high level, the price is right. So for a 70-seater available on the used market today is under $1 million to get that going. And then my belief is that there's a lot of folks that actually come into our communities from out of state that would be willing and joyfully pay a higher fare than we typically charge locals. And so I think there's a lot of creative approaches to how we can fund these sustainably into the future. And then I think we can build more ridership onto our regional transit options today so that we can get more fare box recovery from riders as a result. Yeah.
Our ranking member, Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. I'm curious, though, as this mosquito fleet develops, what is the impact upon the ferries that we're looking at buying? That we talked about one a year for the next 16 years or something of that nature. My understanding is these 160 hold 1,500 walk-ons, or can hold that many. Is this going to affect the number of people then that would ride those ferries? Okay. Realize that this is kind of a short-term thing versus a long-term, but just wondered what your thoughts were.
Yeah, thank you, Senator King. As I read through the legislative record from 15 and 20 and 30 years ago when folks have discussed passenger-only ferries, that has been a long concern. We don't want to launch a service that's cannibalizing walk-ons off our current routes. That's not the intention here. Part of what I think we can do and what we've seen is passenger-only ferries, it allows a lot of agility because we actually don't need to spend tens of millions of dollars to build new marinas or terminal facilities. These smaller vessels can actually link up with existing public marinas, so they're comparatively very quick quick and efficient to actually launch with the emergency declaration in this legislation. As I said, I think it's the fastest and cheapest way to put new boats on the water and better connect communities. I do think about this in a short, a medium, and a long term. Over the short term, I think it can help us ahead of the World Cup, where we're going to have upwards of 1 million folks coming to the Puget Sound region, and we'd love to get them out to small businesses to support our communities all across the Sound and beyond. So in the short term, I think we can bridge the service gap we currently face. And over a medium and longer range, I think there's a real opportunity for Washington State shipyards to actually build out the ferries, not only for Washington State needs, but there's ferries in 37 different states around the country. And there's no reason why Washington State can't be the leader once again in American shipbuilding through our shipyards right here. So there's an opportunity for us to better connect folks across the Sound and beyond the 10 routes that Washington State Ferries operates. Thank you, Senator.
Any further questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much, Representative Nance, for bringing